Hello everyone and welcome back to another album review. In this video I'm going to review Untitled by Limewax. Drum and bass producer Limewax is back with a brand new album, his fifth one, a release that came out of nowhere this month in a brand new label and also in a shorter period of time than expected, because when it comes to many of the Limewax releases, it takes a few years since we get new releases. We already had a brand new release the last year, Set Time, which was a really nice combination of sounds. Some of the tracks had a really nice old school Limewax feel, but it's pretty apparent that he doesn't simply go into drum and bass and dark step territories anymore. He experiments with many different sounds of electronic music. This made Set Time obviously to be a mess of a release, a pretty inconsistent one, but there were certainly some excellent tracks out of this album that I constantly see myself coming back to, because there were some amazing songs. Untitled is more of the same in that respect. This is a really short album of Limewax, by the way, not just for standards of electronic music but as a Limewax release as well. It only goes for 33 minutes and it only has 9 songs, so it doesn't really have that much material to it. However, it's still another album that in my opinion contains some excellent moments. We once again get a release that is a huge mess. This is another really inconsistent release. Like, do not expect any consistency in this album. There are so many different sounds and genres. Like, this album doesn't really even go into directions of drum and bass, with the exception of like 1 or 2 tracks. The rest just go into different styles of electronic music, making the tracks feel completely different one from each other and feeling more of like a collection of tracks. Despite all of that, this album still manages to hold up on its own and having some astonishing moments, adding to the list with my favorite tracks out of the big catalog of Limewax, which in my opinion has many excellent moments. The album starts kinda strong with the first track, Porcelain Worm, which is a bit of a soothing track that has a dark vibe to it, and it goes into some pretty simplistic directions of electronic music with a nice catchy beat and some quite infectious melodies. A track that I would like to see developed even further, but for what it is, it's still a pretty solid moment. But then is where the album really shines with the second track, Stay Lackey. This is the one track that goes the closest to the signature Limewax sound, the one that was mostly known with some of the past releases being this really furious and menacing dark step track, with a furious old school breakbeat that sounds absolutely relentless, and it's also combined very nicely with this dark atmosphere that is in the entirety of the song. This is a really dark and menacing track, and it's done in a really good way. It's another track that in my opinion could have been a bit longer, but this one in particular, this one is really strong. The highlights keep coming with another relentless track called Usio, and this one goes into industrial techno directions, and it's such a powerful techno song. The kick is insane, there is a very nice bass response, and I like the synths, I like the sampling, and it's super aggressive and catchy. I didn't expect something like this from Limewax, but I'm really pleased with the result. He made an amazing job with this one in particular. He made an excellent techno track, and we're going to see similar directions like this further down the road. Way 1 in my opinion is a really good track, could have been better at some parts, but a highlight out of this track is the bass drop, which is just absolutely insane, and another track with a great bass response that feels absolutely furious. The beat has an old school drum and bass feel, but it goes into a slower tempo, and in its main structure is a pretty simple song, but the sound is excellent in this track, and also towards the second half it has this background noisy portion that also adds really well to the experience. The fifth track, Jetappa, is the one moment that I ended up enjoying the least out of the track listing so far. It is a track that has some interesting ideas, especially towards the second half. I like some of the techno vibes and it has a nice dark atmosphere to it. However, this one feels like a step down in terms of its sound. The mixing feels a bit low in this one in particular, and it could have been better in my opinion if it was a bit more intense, just like with the other tracks of this album so far. 19 and B is the longest track over here, and it's an amazing highlight in my opinion. This track has some amazing gated scenes. The synths in this track drag for the entirety of the song, but they have many change-ups to them, and it shines as one of the most infectious moments in the entire project. It also has a sickening kick that is really pumping, and it's another excellent techno track that has a bit of a repetitive feel to it, but it has so many great elements. It's absolutely intense and it sounds awesome. Now after this point there are 3 tracks remaining. However, when it comes to the physical release of this album, it's only released so far as a 12-inch vinyl, and for some reason you only have the first 6 songs. The final 3 tracks are missing on the vinyl record. And I don't really know why this is the case, but I know that this is something that keeps happening, especially with drum and bass and electronic music releases, constantly leaving songs behind out of the vinyl records and making the space smaller. However, I'm not really complaining, as the final 3 tracks are a step down. This is the moment where the album slightly goes downhill. If this was released as an EP with just those 6 tracks, then we would talk about an outstanding release that would be in much higher regard. With just having 1 track that I would not be really feeling it. However, with the final 3 tracks, it feels like the project was getting a bit rushed in the end and just putting on tracks to fill space in the digital release. Now, it doesn't really drop this album that much down, because we're talking about some of the shorter cuts, tracks like Maleisae, which is only 3 minutes long, and it's a pretty uninteresting electronic track with a few dark ambient elements to it, and it's also kind of the same with the 8th track that I'm not even gonna try to pronounce. This is a pretty short moment that goes for a bit less than 2 minutes, and it has an idea presented to it, but obviously it's not really that much developed, so it just feels like a bit of a filler. Finally, we have the 9th track, Hassan, which out of those 3 final moments, it's the best one. It is a really nice electronic song that feels a bit similar to the first song in terms of style, and it's a moment that feels complete. There is a nice structure to it, there are some nice synths and beats, and it's a song that I like, but I wouldn't consider it a highlight out of this album. So I like that this is a pretty short release without having that much filler to it, which is something that I would say became a bit of an issue with some older Limewax releases that would be quite lengthy in comparison. I like the various electronic styles that are presented while still keeping the dark atmosphere, the aggression, the intensity, and for the most part this album is quite solid. I'm going to give Untitled a 7+ out of 10. What's your opinion on this album? Like it, dislike it, why, and what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.